Would you look at that? I actually found time to record the next review pretty much immediately after I watched the episode. I didn't even think that was possible, frankly. I did not like this episode as much as I liked the last one. It changed a lot, added a lot again. And for the most part, I did like the stuff they added, but I'm a little more neutral on it than I was the changes last time. Except for one, which I was very much not sure if I liked it until I really sat down and thought about it and what it means and what it says about some of the characters. And now I think I love it. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Before anything else, though, I have to say there is one thing in this episode I don't get. By the time Percy and the rest of the guys in Paul's car make it to the road outside camp, basically the exact same stretch of road where Sally was nearly crushed to death by the Minotaur in season 1. Clarice has not yet made it to camp, and Blackjack is waiting to inform Percy why, that she landed and went by foot when she saw that there were people sieging camp near the tree. And I can understand her logic as someone who I would assume hasn't really dealt with Pegasi before. She would be worried that they would see her coming and mount a defense and to keep her from getting to the tree, so she wants to go on foot to kind of stay under the radar. But Pegasi are so fast, man. Like in book 5, Blackjack and the far inferior Pork Pie are able to fly so fast through a crowd of people who are fighting alongside literally Kronos that he isn't even able to react to them before they fly away again. They can also, as I mentioned before, warp space. So I imagine Blackjack is standing there waiting to tell Percy what happened, just thinking like, dang, that girl's stupid. Because I could have gotten her in there so quick that they wouldn't have even seen me coming. I absolutely love the scene too where Blackjack's standing in the road and they stop the car and everybody's kind of nervous, and well, Sally's kind of nervous, and Percy's like, oh, don't worry, I know him. And then gets out and is like talking to him, he's like doing hand gestures and stuff, and we don't hear what he says, and we don't hear Blackjack in his mind yet. I hope we get that eventually. And Sally's just watching, like letting it sink in just how weird this all is. It was very cute. It was a very good moment of levity in the show where we picked up right as Percy is having his internal freak out about Thalia coming back. And Sally has just noticed that something's wrong, but he can't tell her yet because they're still, like, Annabeth is still right there. And we actually get a couple of fantastic acting moments between Percy and Sally here. There's that one in the car, and followed up with him telling her what he's worried about once everybody else is kind of out of earshot, except Tyson, I would imagine. But then there's another one that's even better, where she's like, I'm not going to let you go ahead into danger alone. And like Percy's about ready to break down because this is where he thought he saw her die, and he can't see that again, especially not knowing that this time Hades isn't going to snatch her out of danger at the last second. And so she agrees not to go with them. It was just a great moment of acting between the two of them. Walker in particular was fantastic in that scene. And a great moment of the parental character recognizing that she was being selfish and not really contributing positively to the situation, and so stepping back. And I like... There's something to be said for like young adult stuff, like the young characters just like going against what the adults say because the adults can't agree that the kids know better. But every once in a while I like to see a parent in one of these stories acknowledge that, because it's usually true. We also get a fantastic moment. It's not as good as in the book, but we get a fantastic moment with Tantalus getting his comeuppance for everything. He's been making camp miserable because his hope is that things will become so miserable that being at camp will usurp his curse and become his new punishment, and he will finally be able to eat food again. And so And they do a similar thing in the book. He finally reaches out and is able to pick up food because he is so miserable. But it's at that moment that he's fired so that Chiron can be reinstated. And so he gets sent back to the underworld with his curse intact. Here, he realizes he's able to pick up food, and just as he's about to eat it, he gets hit by one of the Lystragonian fireballs and is destroyed and sent back to the underworld. It was a little more flashy and therefore didn't have like the subtle humor of the book scene, but it was still effectively the same thing and probably significantly more painful. So, you know, maybe this one's better, because screw that guy. just kind of doing cleanup with all the like miscellaneous stuff I want to talk about before I talk about anything substantive. Is there anything else? No, I don't think so. Oh, Clarice did get really good use out of that pointy stick. And I imagine the way it gets used, it's going to be like a permanent part of one of those sets now, which is really, really cool. Like, that's basically what I asked for, right? Was for that thing to have meaning going forward. But I'll talk about exactly what that means in a minute. We do get a fight in this one, and as I predicted, it is, at least primarily, only between demigods, because the monsters aren't able to get through the barrier. And because of that, part of the goal of Luke's side in the battle is to basically hold things until either the tree dies, or they're able to bring Thalia back because Luke still thinks she'll be on his side, or they're able to destroy the tree themselves with like additional attacks, which is something Luke doesn't want to do, but what that the others are willing to. And eventually, since those things don't happen, they do have to retreat. And again, it wasn't contrived at all. It makes sense. They would have had to retreat. It also makes sense the way that Clarice learns of the identities of Luke's spies in the camp, because he does have spies in the camp. They hadn't mentioned it previously, but we always kind of knew in the books that there were people in camp that were sympathetic to him. And as things got more and more serious, they eventually like left to go actually be part of his army, save for one that they have to introduce her soon, or it won't work out. I hope they do, because she could have a really cool dynamic with Clarice. If you know, you know. And Chris Rodriguez, the guy that Clarice has been kind of lusting after this season, is one of them. In fact, he's kind of leading like one of the defense patrols, and they come across Clarice, and the only thing that saves her is that not everyone in his patrol was one of the people sympathetic to Luke. Katie Gardner from Demeter Cabin was there too, who was a great addition because it makes sense. She's a super helpful person. It would make sense she would volunteer to go patrol with him and his group. And he couldn't turn her down without looking suspicious. So he had to bring her with him. And then they're about to like attempt to kill Clarice and steal the Fleece so that they can control the resurrection of Thalia. And so he gives himself away by turning and stabbing Katie, and she's gonna be fine, I would assume. She's not like a major player going forward, but she is mentioned several times. In fact, she, if I'm not mistaken, was doing really important background stuff throughout the entire second series. I think I'm right about that. She had a sister too, I think. It's beside the point. And that gives Clarice a chance to fight back and escape and maintain control of the Fleece. And eventually she's able to kind of string it around her pointy stick and spear it into the tree to restore the tree. And it does bring Thalia back immediately. And she's in the process of summoning lightning, so she kind of knocks out everybody. And then that gives the two sides their chance to pick up the pieces and part ways as Luke and his group retreat. We also got a great scene of Percy kind of taking charge of the demigods at camp, because Dionysus isn't going to do it. He presents it more as he's a god. He cannot rally them to battle because that would be too direct of involvement. He kind of implies that's the reason why somebody like Chiron or Tantalus is there in the first place, which I kind of liked. He still doesn't sound like he particularly cares about camp, but it's a better reason than whatever, you know? Because Dionysus is supposed to be completely heartless. Also editing AJ here, completely forgot to mention, I got so excited about other stuff, I completely forgot to mention in this scene, my favorite, I think, thematic thing here that might also contribute to why Thalia will side with camp going forward. When Percy's rallying the other campers, he literally says that thing, that kind of those arc words that we've been seeing with Thalia and Luke and Annabeth, we take care of our own. He says a variation of that to them. And I think the fact that their side seems to be upholding that, whereas Luke seems to have betrayed it, is going to factor into Thalia's choice, which is very good. Very well done. Just wanted to mention it. Alright. Back to me. So Percy rallies everybody, takes the entire camp to battle, and I felt bad because there were some really young kids in that crowd. But Percy's also a young kid. I keep forgetting that because Walker's like 7 feet tall this season. We got a good fight with him and Luke, where again, he's just not as strong as Luke one-on-one. So Tyson has to help. It was good. It was a little simplistic in its choreography, but I liked the brother stuff that happened. Tyson got to use a trident, which was sick. And then after Thalia knocks him out, they get a dream scene with Poseidon, where he basically just like tells him good job, shows him as much attention as he can, being Poseidon, you know. And we actually get to see something that I'm pretty sure happened off screen in the books. Tyson is invited to go down to the underwater forges in Poseidon's realm to forge weapons for the coming war and spend some time with his dad and extended family. And I like that we got to see that. I also like that we got to see the moment that Thalia reunited with Annabeth. That happened off screen in the books, like properly, right? Like she kind of woke up from being resurrected from the tree in the book and Annabeth was there. But we didn't get to see them like properly interact for the first time since she came back. Here we do. It was so cool. The moment that she realizes that this is Annabeth and that much time has passed and has to like navigate the emotions of that in her mind before she just goes back to being Annabeth's big sister was great. It was so cute. And in the books, she picks Camp Half-Blood despite hating Camp Half-Blood still, because Annabeth is there and Luke betrayed her and Annabeth needs somebody, more or less. It's implied that that's why anyway. I totally buy in this version that would be the reason too, despite that other big change that they made. Just because the acting was so strong in that moment, I totally buy the bond between these characters. We don't get to see much of it in the books, unfortunately. But just this one moment here made it feel so much stronger in this version, at least. Everybody got more to do, basically, is what I'm getting at. Clarice got some stuff, Grover got some stuff, Thalia got some stuff, Percy got a couple of extra things to do, Luke got a couple of extra things to do, we got a little bit of extra action. That again, I could take or leave that, because I'm not entirely sure I'm satisfied with the conflict between the two demigod sides happening this early in this version, but it was fine. I didn't hate it either. Even Sally got stuff to do, and tangentially, so did Paul Blofeld, which is cool, because I like Paul. I think he's pretty freaking cool. Mostly because he likes Percy's dog that he gets later, and I like people who like dogs. I don't know if you could have guessed that about me. I'll try to remember to put a picture in. I have so many dog plushies just sitting here in my office. There's like an entire shelf of them literally right here. But now let's talk about that big change. First of all, we got to meet our new Zeus. Because you may or may not recall that Lance Reddick passed away after he was done filming Zeus for season 1, unfortunately. So we got, what was his name? Courtney B. Vance. Courtney B. Vance was cast as Zeus going forward. And, God, as much as I liked Lance Reddick's portrayal, I might like this one better. He's not so obviously hostile. He comes across more calm immediately, but the rage and petulance of him still come through as undertones and make him a little more like icily threatening. I thought his performance was really good. He got to play off of Thalia in a scene. A retcon and recontextualization of her scene where she turned into a tree, as told by Chiron, who saw the whole thing, and I imagine would probably not still be around if Zeus knew that. Right? Because he was planning to help fight against the Furies and try to save Thalia. But, okay, first, let's go over a couple things. The fandom has had a couple of theories, at least ones that I've been aware of and paid attention to, of like the real situation around Thalia getting turned into a tree. And basically we assume that Zeus couldn't outright save her because, as powerful as he is, that would have been seen as him saving this being that he hoped to groom into his weapon, a forbidden child that the others would already have been giving him shit for having in the first place, and it would have caused an uprising on Olympus if he had actually stepped in to interfere in a way that would have allowed her to continue to influence things. So the theory was he saved her in the only way he could, but that in doing so, in trapping her soul on Earth behind a barrier in a form where she would be valued by the camp, he was keeping her in play. Because, like, obviously he would be able to turn her back, right, if he needed to. So he was preserving her for the time he might need her, the same way, spoilers for later in the series, we find out that Hades has been preserving his own forbidden children, and now that Thalia is in play again, he in fact brings them back into play so that his oldest could compete with Thalia for the place of the prophesied hero. And some fans kind of theorize that he might have engineered the situation with Thalia falling partially himself, Zeus, so that he could have an excuse to preserve her in this way, and therefore have some control over when and how the prophecy was fulfilled. And that's kind of what they went with here. The Furies don't attack her immediately. I imagine they still probably would have, but they don't attack her immediately. They talk to her first. They tell her about the prophecy, and they give her the gist of it the way that Percy's been given the gist of it. And I can totally understand why. Again, spoilers, but Hades commands the Furies, right? We find out later in Book 5 that Hades' mortal family, including those demigods I mentioned, was destroyed, for lack of a better term, by the advent of the Great Prophecy back in the 40s. And yes, Hades made some choices after that were objectively bad, one of which directly led to the conflict happening now. But I could totally understand, considering what happened to his family, wanting this girl to have a choice in the matter rather than be sent to camp and groomed to be her father's weapon. And I imagine he probably meant to offer her a similar deal to the one he offered Percy. I'll give you sanctuary if you agree not to become your father's instrument or something like that. But they are saying too much, so Zeus just strikes them down. And of course, that's a thing the other Olympians would be okay with, because they don't want her knowing about the prophecy and making a choice that would harm them either. And he shows up. He tries to finesse her into going into camp and being a good camper and being his daughter. But she isn't. She's not for it. And so he zaps her into a tree. She was never fatally injured in this version. And God, it says so much more about the politics of Olympus and the dynamics of the Olympian family, that despite it being a huge change, that paints Zeus in a really bad light, like based on his direct actions rather than just his vibe, like it kind of was more in the books, you know? I really like it. Because it still puts Thalia in the same position she was going into book 3, right? But it just adds so much more texture to her being here at camp and her dynamic with her father. And I think it's so interesting when he appears to her. He says, Thalia Grace, not daughter, not my child. But then when she says Zeus, he demands that she call him father. Like, that alone was worth this entire change because of what that says about him. It's just so good, and it's so well written. And I understand that there's going to be people who don't like this. I ask you to sit back and think about what it does for the characters, not to them. Because changing things does something to the characters, right? I want you to consider what it does for them and how interesting that could make further interactions between them going forward. And again, a spoiler. In order to keep from being the child of the prophecy, Thalia, going forward, let's say, pledges loyalty to a different Olympian. This strengthens her reason for doing that too, because that other Olympian would protect her from Zeus, even though she defied him. I cannot wait for season 3. I cannot wait to see this story continued in this form. I'm so thrilled. And fortunately, we don't have to wait super long, because season 3 is coming this year. We don't have a concrete date, but it is coming this year, and we even got a clip from, I would imagine, the first episode at the end of this episode in place of like a next time. And I really like what scene they picked, because it's a really cute one, and I am glad that they have kind of assured us that it is going to happen in a book-like way in this version, because I was really hoping to see it. It's going to be adorable. I really hope we get to see the other dance pair in that scene too, because that'll be cute and funny. I also really love that in telling them the truth of what happened to Thalia, Chiron finally feels like the mentor and father figure to these characters that he was supposed to be in the books, because he has never really felt like that here. That's one of the few character dynamics in the TV version where we're informed of it more than we see it. Like Annabeth in particular thinks of him kind of as a surrogate father figure, and we are informed that she does through like her dialogue about him. But here we finally get to see it come to fruition, and it was very good. Again, some of the changes here, I don't think they were as good or as necessary as the ones in the previous episode, They work, but I would have been fine without them. But I still think this is a great episode, and I think it sets up so many interesting things. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. And Chiron does kind of confirm my thought that Kronos was probably always thinking about maybe bringing Thalia back with the Fleece to be his child of prophecy if Percy didn't work out, which means that they kind of confirmed here that Zeus kept Thalia in play for his own reason, because again, he could have just killed her, right? Nobody really would have condemned him for that, like that would have known about it happening, right? Because he could have just lied about what actually happened, but he didn't. He still turned her into a tree, and so it does kind of feel like both him and Kronos were kind of banking on being able to use her in the future. It was real cool. It was real good. How many more times am I going to say that it was really good before I just sign off the video? One more. It was really good. That said, what did you guys think of Percy Jackson and the Olympians Season 2, Episode 8, The Fleece Works Its Magic Too Well? What did you think of the changes? Do you think they worked? Did you like them? Did you not like them? Did you like some and not others? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. While you're down there, you might as well like and subscribe and all that other YouTube stuff. In the meantime, though, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.